If you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do, all these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Alex. Today, I want to talk to you guys about emotional wellness, particularly as it relates to all of the parents and children out there right now who are having to experience social distancing together in the same household 24/7. Being cooped up in the house can be uncomfortable for anyone, but particularly for kids who have so much energy and for the parents who are having to work at home at the same time that they're trying to figure out how to homeschool and care for their kids simultaneously. It's a lot for anyone. And parents, if you are out there listening right now, I just want you to know you are doing a good job. It is okay. Things are chaotic for everyone right now, and you are having to do like 6 jobs at once. Granted, you normally have to do that, but these are extreme times, and you are in an extreme situation. So don't beat yourself up about it. I don't expect you to become a teacher overnight, and I don't think that the teachers do either. That is okay. You are doing the best you can, and that's all anyone can ask of you. So today we're going to talk about emotional wellness for kids and for parents, particularly while y'all are having to cohabitate even more closely than you are used to. They say that familiarity breeds contempt, and we want to make sure that we are having the best time possible as we are forced to be in close quarters with our loved ones. So first up, emotional wellness. What is emotional wellness? It can really be described as developing a capacity for kids and adults to experience, regulate, and express emotions. That helps you to form close, secure interpersonal relationships, and it helps kids and adults to explore their environment and to learn in cultural contexts of families and communities. It prepares them to be well-rounded adults who can have meaningful relationships and who can communicate when they're upset about something rather than just disappearing or exhibiting avoidance behavior or throwing tantrums. So it's important for us all to cultivate this. Let's start with how we can do this with kids. So, since you are having the kids at home, no one really expects you to be able to suddenly teach algebra or trigonometry or psychology, but we can go ahead as parents and work on developing the social skills for kids. That is something that as parents we should already be doing on our own. So, regardless of whether we are in the era of social distancing, these can be really helpful to learn overall. So for developing these social skills and emotional competencies in kids, we can help them learn how to listen to others. It's important they know how to follow steps and rules, how to ignore distractions, but also how to ask for help. turn taking is very important, as well as getting along with others, staying calm in reactions to what's going on in the world around them and in their interactions with others. It's important to feel emotions, but also to be respectful in how we communicate them, how to be responsible for our own behavior in that manner, and how to be kind and do nice things for others. So as we have the kids at home, some things that we can practice with them is spending some quality time with them and giving them our attention. That's really more of what the kids need from parents right now and caregivers, more than you trying to pull your hair out learning how to do algebra. So there are online resources for that we can get into a little bit later. But let's focus on keeping them emotionally well right now. This spending time with kids is going to provide an opportunity to practice conversation skills. It's going to help them practice that turn taking and how to get along with others, how to stay calm with others, and just communicating in general, both their feelings and their thoughts. It helps to promote kids' self-esteem by making sure that they are feeling heard and like their opinion matters. So you can also, in talking to them, help promote their vocabulary and work on their conversation and social skills. So I also teach English to small children in China online in my downtime. And when I do that, we practice something called positive correction. So positive correction means that when a child or even another adult messes something up slightly, instead of just immediately harping on it, you go ahead and praise them first. And you say, good, and then work on the correction component. So for kids, especially when it comes to teaching English and vocabulary, what that really looks like is, great job, or I get what you're saying, and then pronouncing the word with them again. So if it's has versus have, you go ahead and have them say have again, and then repeat the full sentence. And if you are super positive about it and reinforce it with something positive like playtime, you don't necessarily want to use food as a reward, because then they're going to come to expect food for this, and that can be kind of a dangerous precedent to set for rewards in general, because our food habits and a lot of the habits that we set in childhood follow us for the rest of our lives. So we want to set good habits even in the meantime right now. But you can then maybe read their favorite book with them and teach them that reading is also a reward, so they're not looking at it as something that they have to do in order to play video games. It's about reframing these things for kids right now. So, in that manner, you can really work on their vocab and their conversation skills. And it's really cute when they are learning to speak and they have more of that baby talk or that toddler talk, but it's also important for us to help them shape their vocabulary and their conversation skills. And that's something that we can easily do as parents and caregivers via positive correction and creating appropriate rewards. We can also go ahead and show affection to our kids. In today's sociocultural climate, a lot of schools prohibit teachers or other types of caregivers from showing affection to the kids that is physical. And there are definitely reasons for that, but perhaps during this time of the children being home with you, you can show more affection to them. And that can be verbal affection. It can also be physical affection. Just take this time to hug your kids, snuggle your kids. Children need physical contact, and that is something that you as their parent can really provide to them. In the 1950s, there was a psychologist named Harlow who did a study with rhesus monkeys, and they were particularly baby monkeys, trying to determine whether these monkeys preferred a cloth-covered proxy for their mother or just a regular wire mother, to discover whether physical contact is very meaningful and strong. And he found that they did prefer the cloth-covered mothers. It is about comfort in a lot of ways. So we've studied this since at least the 1950s. And in one 2015 study involving more than 400 adults, Cohen et al. Studied the degree to which people experiencing daily hugs correlated with the magnitude as to whether people would later get sick. So specifically, they were looking at how frequently people who were experiencing hugs for 2 weeks before being exposed to a virus, and these people volunteered to be exposed to this virus as well and were paid for their participation. But they were exposed to a virus and then kept in quarantine to see who would develop flu symptoms over the next 4 weeks. And among infected participants in the study, the people who received more frequent hugs exhibited less severe symptoms. The authors then concluded that more human touch may reflect greater social support, which can also buffer the effect of stress on people's health. So in that way, people who receive more hugs or other forms of warm touch from their partners or from their close social support system experience a number of beneficial outcomes. They have greater levels of oxytocin, lower levels of blood pressure, and they also have reduced heart rates, according to a 2005 study. Similar cardiovascular benefits have also been observed in a 2002 study by Allen et al. In dog owners from just being in the same room as their pet. So right now, love on those kids, you guys. Go ahead and give them warm touches. Give them a pat on the back. Give them hugs throughout the day. Take a hug break. If you're feeling frustrated, instead of taking the frustration out on someone else around you, just take a deep breath and go, I could really use a hug right now, and hug those kiddos. Chances are they could use it right now too, and that can alleviate stress for both of you. If you don't have kids in the house, hug your partner who is working at home with you right now, or your roommate if you're hugging roommates. So my roommate right now is working from home, and he does not enjoy it. I love working from home, so I'm doing fine. I've worked from home for 7 years, but he could really probably use a hug right now. It doesn't have to be from me. You could just take your roommate, a pet that you have in the house, take them the cat or the dog or the iguana, whatever type of pet that you happen to have, and be like, hey, you seem like you might need a hug or some type of physical contact right now, and go ahead and help out that person or your pet and help yourself out. These animals are also perhaps not used to us being home. For the dogs, they might be super jazzed by it. For the cats, it could really go either way. You could be interrupting important cat business. So keep that in mind with the folks around you, especially in regards to their introversion versus extroversion and their physical comfort levels too with physical touch. Sometimes it can be the opposite. Some folks are more comfortable with physical touch than others, or they're okay with different types of touch. Like my friend who will like to give hand hugs, but does not like full-on physical hugs. So meet people at that level and also communicate your own emotions with your kids and your coworkers, quote unquote, who are working from home with you right now. We're going to go on a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk some more about emotional wellness in the time of coronavirus. Stay tuned.
Are you looking to learn more about the latest trends from the fitness world? Are you confused by all of the different trends that are out there? The GSMC Fitness Podcast is the place for you. The GSMC Fitness Podcast is the place to come for people of all skill and interest levels. Join us as we explore the latest trends in the fitness world. Does that new exercise really work? Should I try yoga? Whatever your question, chances are good you'll find an answer on the GSMC Fitness Podcast.
Wellness, particularly as it relates to parents and kids who are working from home together right now or schooling from home at the moment, and how emotional wellness is one of the most important things that teachers and caregivers can do for kids right now as we are all chilling together. Next, I want to talk some more about steps we can take with the kids. So we were talking about physical connection and how that's very important for kids. And now I want to also talk about some verbal things that we can do. So we can use descriptive praise in order to help kids out in their social and emotional competencies. So that means that we tell them specifically what they're doing right. We want to encourage appropriate social behavior and compliance. So it's really easy to point out when someone is doing something wrong. And we see that a lot of times on the internet with like Yelp reviews or Amazon reviews or any type of reviews. People are much more likely to go out and voice a negative opinion than they are to post a glowing one. In order for a negative opinion to be posted or to be imparted verbally to someone, you don't even have to have a lot that goes wrong. But we don't take that same approach when things go right. If we're going to post about something going well, it's when something has gone exceptionally well. But in this case, especially with kids being home with you right now, it can be very helpful to encourage the really small things. So instead of saying, hey, I really need you to be quiet right now and you're driving me crazy, another approach would be waiting until they are being quiet for a while, and that can vary in the duration depending upon their age group, and say, hey, I really appreciate how quiet you're being. That's so helpful for me in getting my work done, and I appreciate it. It makes me really happy. And that can really help kids out. Glowing praise, especially when it is specific, can really help reinforce positive behaviors. It can also improve self-esteem. If we only tell them when they're being bad, then it draws attention to negative behaviors, and it can negatively impact their self-esteem. In this way, you can still get what you need by giving descriptive praise, and it can also help build your children's self-esteem. It's really important in that way. And by children, I don't mean just the little ones. Yeah, some of you have teenagers at home right now, or college students who are still, 19 years old or so. They're still young people trying to figure out who they are and how to get along with folks in the world around them. They still have quite a few hormones going through their veins as well, as we all do. And so everyone is trying to get used to this transition, and it is important that we all keep that in mind when we are interacting with each other. So you can even just say to your partner or your roommates, hey, I really appreciate you being mindful about keeping the music low while I'm working at home right now too. It's really helpful for me in getting stuff done, and I just wanted you to know that I noticed, and I really appreciate you showing care for me that way. It doesn't have to be that wordy. Just be descriptive. Be specific in your praise. Thanks for being quiet this morning. I know we're on different schedules, and I really appreciate you allowing me to sleep in and stay on mine by being quiet this morning while you went about your regular work schedule. Just little things like that can be very helpful in showing kindness to each other day to day, and showing that same type of kindness to the older members of the family, and especially to other adults, can help model that for kids too. It's important that they see that you are reflecting this type of kindness and praise, not just to kids, but that it's something that should continue into adulthood. This is a great time to practice being kinder and gentler versions of ourselves. And I think you'll find that it is going to help you out a lot in your general sense of calm and well-being too. Kindness and self-care and self-love are practices, just like exhibiting them outwards. So I think this is going to be potentially a great time for everyone if we focus on these small choices that we make every day regarding our behaviors. We can also try providing engaging activities for the kids. So encourage independent play. Kids need to learn how to play together whenever they can, and they can learn that if they're only children by playing with you and sharing with you when you are able to take a break or you're able to be off work. However, it's also important for them to learn to be independent and play on their own. So even if they have siblings, don't necessarily make them play together all the time. Having some independent play can be very important for them, and just having some alone time can be really beneficial right now as well. So if they share a room, maybe have one of them in the living room and one of them in the bedroom at a certain point, and say that, if they need independent play, they can go ahead and put a sock on the door if that is all you have right now, or go ahead and put a little piece of construction paper on the wall, just tape it up there with Scotch tape or on the door, and put their little slip in it with their name on it, and they can go ahead and have 15 minutes of free time. You don't have to have the door closed or anything. It's just to go, hey, I need some me time right now. And by putting a little slip on the door or a little sock on the doorknob, even while the door is open, it's just going to indicate to everyone else that the munchkin needs some alone time right now. They just need some me time. You could also try this with older adults in the house or with your roommate. It just depends on what is most comfortable for you. But that can be a good way to just go, hey, I love you, but I need a little bit of me time right now, without having to make anyone feel upset. It's also important to make them feel comfortable saying it. However, since you are working from home at the time too, and some of you may be doing telework, so you are not only just working from home, but you're perhaps on the phone with work, or you're in a video conference, or you're having to speak with customers on the phone. And so you don't need a kid to come in there every 5 minutes, or your roommate to go, hey, I need some me time, but if you need me, come knock on the door. Having a system in place like this can really be helpful, especially if you want them to be leaving the doors open for whatever reason. So at this point, this also can promote appropriate behavior in their community. And in this case, the community is the household. And it can promote appropriate social behaviors where they're also seeing and respecting that you're at work and they can't run in and interrupt you or say anything like that, while also providing for a type of communication. Not all communication is necessarily verbal. We take communication tips from body language, from facial expressions, and also from context clues, such as establishing this type of social practice. So, in that regard, it helps to keep you on the same page as the kids, and it helps everyone to communicate better, even if it is nonverbal. And it's also important for them to understand social cues and context clues. You can also do this by setting a good example. Show the children appropriate behaviors. Respect their space and their need for alone time as well. We don't have to have dinner necessarily right at 5 o'clock for most of us. So if they're needing some alone time right then, perhaps just give them a little emotional space and let them know, hey, family time's important, but also I understand that you maybe need some space and you're going through something. So just cut them some slack. Everyone is extra stressed right now, and we can love each other better by exhibiting more kindness and understanding. Sometimes we're just not down to go ahead and have dinner right now either, and we need a little bit of a break. Structure is important for kids, but every now and then just letting them have some space can be a really good way to promote their self-esteem, to set a good example, and to respect them as fellow people. We can also use this time to perform incidental teaching, so promoting language, problem solving, and independence in the kids. It might be a good time to teach them how to make a sandwich. Small children can use butter knives and stuff to make sandwiches. You might be surprised what your kids are capable of when you go ahead and just take a 15-minute break from work or on your lunch break to try to teach them these things without worrying necessarily about how messy it's going to be. If there's a mess, that's okay. That is a great time to use incidental teaching to teach them how to clean up a mess. It is all just an opportunity for learning and for teaching. And it also helps us practice our patience. That is also a gift in a way. It is important that we are able to practice that and to embody that for kids. It's good for them to learn that it's okay to make mistakes, especially if you are an adult who has trouble when you make mistakes at this point in your life. Wouldn't it have been nice when you were younger if someone gave you the space to make mistakes and still be totally fine and not have someone be upset with you? It might even be really great for you now, depending on the other people you work with, because we all used to be children who had different people teaching us what it looks like to make mistakes and what it looks like to react to someone making a mistake. So teach these kids how to make a peanut butter sandwich. Teach them what's an appropriate amount of peanut butter and jelly to use. You could even just teach them how to make a bologna sandwich, just a very simple sandwich with a meat and a cheese or something, and how many pieces go on it. If they're little, you could also be teaching them how to count out the pieces as you go. You can make a game of it. You can also teach them problem solving and the names of different things. This is a sandwich. This is bread. Can you get me the cheese from the fridge? Even if they're very little, you can include them in these type of ways while you're at home. And as you build on this in the coming weeks, it's going to really help the kids with their self-esteem. It's also going to help them with their independence, their problem solving, their use of language, and it's going to help you to be less stressed because they're going to understand how to do things appropriately for themselves. So they won't have to rely on you to make a sandwich. Now, I understand too, they're kids. They shouldn't have to do a lot of the things that are going on right now. But there's nothing wrong with teaching them a little bit of self-reliance. And kids tend to love learning how to do things for themselves. When I was home this last time, I taught my 7-year-old niece how to pump gas. And she was very excited about it. But when I asked, have you ever pumped gas before? She said no, that she was always scared she was going to mess it up. And so I was like, honey, that's okay. If you mess this up, it'll be fine. If you get gas everywhere, then we will just take showers when we get home. It'll be okay. I just want you to go ahead and go for it. Here is my credit card. This is how this works. And I stood beside her the entire time and helped her out with it, praised her while she was doing a great job, and asked her how she wanted to do it. I explained there are 2 ways to do it. You can put the little kickstand on it so that it automatically will kick off as soon as it's done, or you can hold it yourself and wait to feel the kick for it. And she decided that since I was already letting her learn this, that she really wanted to learn how to do it herself fully and feel the kick for it and let it go. So we did that, and she was so excited. And the first thing that she said when she got home was, "Mom, Dad, I learned how to pump gas today." She was super stoked about it. That doesn't mean I'm going to make her pump gas every time she rides with me and that we're home. But those are the types of things that my grandmother helped teach me when I was a wee little girl. And it really helped with my independence and my self-esteem. And just in general, I really enjoy learning new things. So learning right now, coming from parents, does not have to be book learning. Teaching them things like independence and problem solving and influencing their self-esteem is just as important. We're going to go on another break, and when we come back, we're going to continue this discussion of ways to teach your children some emotional wellness.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Children, like setting a good example, giving them reciprocal respect and some space while they're having this trouble with going through social distancing themselves right now and getting cabin fever perhaps, as well as how to use incidental teaching to really improve their self-esteem, their independence, and their emotional competence. Now we're going to expand a bit on that with some more concepts. And first up is using asking, saying, and doing to teach them self-care skills and new skills in general. It's important that we not only tell kids what they're to do, but we also ask them questions. Ask them about how their day is going. Ask them how they would like to go about a task. Like in our last segment, how I illustrated this by asking my niece which way she would like to pump gas. So she expressed learning. I asked her, "Would you like to do this?" And she said yes. And so then I asked, "Which way would you like to do it?" I explained there are 2 ways and asked her which one she wanted to do. That promotes some independence, and that allows her to think it through and go, okay, I have 2 different options for essentially the skill level for this task. I want to go ahead and do this one. By giving them options, you help meet them at their comfort levels, and they're still able to perform the task that you are wanting to teach them. They're still able to learn these new skills, but it's at their comfort level. Similarly, when I am teaching English online with the kids, I will often give them options. I'll ask towards the end of the lesson if they would like to practice more of their free talk, or if they would like to work more on the vocabulary we just learned. Most of the time, they will choose free talk, and that is what we're aiming for. is to teach them how to speak conversationally in English using full sentences. But they like to have the option. Giving them options just takes some of the pressure off. And in that way, the kids will be more responsive because they don't feel pressured at that point. Nothing has really changed. They are just getting to experience having the option. And that makes them feel more in control of the situation and therefore more comfortable. It's very similar to the concept of getting more flies with honey than vinegar. And that's really what we're going for here, is just the kinder, gentler approach to teaching and to close cohabitation. So I really recommend this type of method. You can explain something to them and then ask them questions. It also really helps when you're reading books with them to ask them questions about what they're reading. That's what's going to promote their reading comprehension, which is really also a huge part of their end of grade tests. And it's just a part of cultivating intellectual wellness as well. It's going to make them more confident overall because they're going to understand what they're reading. It's one thing to sight read, and it's another to stop every few sentences or every chapter or so, depending on how old they are, and ask them about what is going on in the book. It's really going to help set them up for success long term, as you're not only cultivating just reading comprehension for their tests, but just comprehension for everyday life as well, to make sure that they're not just going through the motions, but that they're really processing what they are reading and participating in as well. It's super easy. If you give a child an opening to go ahead and start talking about it, how they feel about it, what they think about the choices the characters are making, or even just, where did the mouse live? Oh, the mouse lived under the couch in the story that you're reading. It's going to help them with new vocabulary and also with just thinking things through. Make sure that you're also patient with them while they're thinking about it. It's okay if they don't get it off the top of their heads, and you can also prompt them a little bit, or you can go back and read that sentence or that passage again so that they get the gist of it. Just don't use that as a punishment. You want to give them that positive correction we talked about earlier in today's episode, and then also reinforce the correct answer. You can also use behavior charts. So this helps if the child is younger, and it can encourage appropriate behaviors, an absence of problem behaviors, and also reinforcing positive social behaviors. So you want to make sure that this isn't punitive in a way. You're wanting to encourage appropriate behaviors. So making sure that whenever they do something good, that you recognize them for that. If they're very small, being quiet and sitting still for 5 or 15 minutes can be really rough for a 4-year-old. It doesn't mean that they have ADHD or anything like that. They're just a 4-year-old. It's difficult for them to sit still. So go ahead and even set a timer for yourself if you need to on your phone so that you can go, hey, in 5 minutes, if they're still being quiet, I should go ahead and praise them for being quiet, and then go get them one of their favorite books or something like that. Or let them help pick out what they're getting for lunch. Just give them options. So you can't just, of course, let them have ice cream for lunch every day. Although every now and then you can let them have ice cream for lunch as a treat. I mean, we're all in the era of social distancing, and sometimes I like to have ice cream as a treat. So kids are the same way. We aren't looking for perfect choices right now, you guys. Remember, as always, in health and wellness, we're just looking for better choices. And sometimes you have to weigh that out with physical health and nutrition versus emotional wellness. So they shouldn't be eating junk all the time, but every now and then, as a treat, that's okay. And it can really boost their moods, and it can boost your mood as well. Doing nice things for other people can also make us feel nice. And remember, children are fellow people. They're just very small ones who tend to have shorter tempers than the rest of us, but that's what we're working on together now. So promote those positive behaviors. Perhaps don't take away the points from their behavior chart or their smiley faces, whatever you're deciding to use when they do something incorrect, but rather just let them know, hey, when you do enough appropriate behaviors today, give them a hard goal for that. And by hard, I don't mean difficult. I mean concrete goal, something that's actionable, that they can see that they're working towards, and just say, hey, when you do this much time today, then you get a 20 minutes reading a book with me tonight, or you get to pick your lunch. You can have a peanut butter sandwich, or you can have a piece of pizza, and you get to let them pick. And that is going to give them some independence as well as something to work towards. It can be just that simple, you guys. Kids are small and they are just wanting to exercise their independence. That's why a lot of times kids end up acting out, in my experience, is they're just trying to assert their personhood and go, hey, I'm a person and this is what I want. It's them working towards independence as well. And that's okay. We can just reroute that into a positive expression by using behavior charts and teaching them new skills and using incidental learning. There are great positive ways that we can work on this with our kids together. And I hope that so far this has given you guys some really good ideas and some solid perspective for ways that we approach parenting and caregiving in general, and especially how we can use these tips to promote more emotional wellness in the era of social distancing. It's going to make it easier on the kids, and it's going to make it easier on you in the long run as well. Spending 20 minutes teaching a child how to make a sandwich and how to clean things up is going to mean 10 minutes in the future that you're not going to be having to clean stuff up or feel frustrated about having to clean up that mess or having to get up and make them that sandwich when really you need to be working on a video conference or something. It's going to work for everyone all around, and trust me, they will appreciate it. I'm not saying that you're asking them to cook a full dinner or anything when they are 6 years old, but they can certainly learn how to make a sandwich. All right, we're going to go on another break, and when we come back, we are going to continue discussing this concept of emotional wellness in kids and parents.
The GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Taking the time to teach them new skills using the saying, asking, and doing methods, as well as rewarding positive behavior, even by perhaps using behavior charts. We also want to teach kids self-care. So self-care is something that has been popularized more for adults in the past few years, and it's also important that we teach kids about it. They may be very stressed and they may be frustrated and stir crazy. And just like we tend to get more emotional when we are in those situations, so do kids. but they might have an even harder time than we do in dealing with that. So some self-care tips can be as simple as prioritizing sleep. So it's important to give the kids some structure and keep them on a routine, but they might be able to stay up a little later right now in the era of social distancing. So right now, it's okay to let them stay up a little bit later. They should still really have a bedtime of some sort, but instead of 8 p.m., go ahead and extend that till 9 or 10, parents. They can get up a couple of hours later, let them sleep till their little bodies say it's time to wake up, and that's quite all right. But we can still set them a bedtime without it having to be exactly the same as before. A lot of folks will also say that for emotional wellness, it's important to have your kids step away from screens, but also during the era of social distancing, I do not think that it makes you a bad parent to let them watch TV right now. We want to make sure that they're not watching too much so it doesn't damage their little eyes, but also it's okay. We're all trying to figure out what's going on right now, and it is all right if they end up watching more TV than they normally would. Even substitute teachers will go ahead and let kids watch TV when they are having to fill in and they don't have a lesson plan prepared. That's okay. You're like a substitute teacher right now, and you're doing the best that you can. That's totally fine. It would be really cool if you were able to prioritize some type of educational television at this point, perhaps something from PBS, and you can go to PBS Online to help kids with that. But there's also a lot of old Sesame Street shows on YouTube. There's also some more shows like Masha and the Bear on YouTube that will help kids learn, strangely and awesomely, to speak Russian in different ways, and also still be very educational for them and help them learn about sharing. There are a ton of different ways that your kids can learn right now. A couple of weeks of spending more time than usual watching television is not going to completely ruin their eyesight or anything like that. It is okay. Go ahead and do what you need to do and make the best decision you can for you and your kids. Sometimes in life, there is no perfect decision, but there is a best decision. Kids have to learn that for tests as well. There's no perfect choice, but there is a best choice for their tests. That is something I really learned from watching the TV show Stargate SG-1, which is a sci-fi show. And I learned that from Jack O'Neill. So he's the guy in charge, and sometimes he has to make decisions that aren't necessarily perfect, but they are the best he has from the options available. And it's okay to do that as a parent. No one expects you to be a perfect teacher. At this point, you're doing what you can. That's okay. Educational television is still education right now. Educational internet is still educational. So sit those kids down in front of something like Khan Academy, where you have people dedicated to teaching kids in a sequence time progression how to do these different math exercises or how to do these different types of social studies projects. It's totally okay. You're doing the best you can. Your kids are doing the best they can, and that's all anyone can ask for you in such trying times. You can also make time with the kids to visit with friends and family via FaceTime. So we don't necessarily want to go see them in person, but they can FaceTime their friends and family. We can take the extra load as the cool aunts and uncles and non-binary relatives to spend time with our nieces and nephews and such. We're here for you guys too. So we can go ahead and talk to these kids on Messenger Kids or FaceTime with them. Let them know they can reach out to us as well. I reached out to my sisters this week and was like, hey, how are the kids doing with school? Let them know if they're stuck on something that they can reach out to me, and I will do my best to teach them or to help them find a resource that can teach them better than I can. And that is totally okay. We're here to help you. A lot of us thrive on being the cool aunts and uncles in the family. We are here to help the kids. We're here to help you and alleviate some of the pressure. We don't necessarily have kids in our life 24/7 in our personal homes, but we can help you out, and it's okay to ask for help. Your mental and emotional wellness as a parent is very important to your friends around you and to your family members. So let the Munchkins call their family members and reach out. Everyone is stressed out, and kids give us the opportunity to be better than we are. They can really help other people who don't tend to be around kids as much, especially to feel special and to go ahead and help them out. And as we've discussed before, people feel good helping out other people. So it's nice for us to be able to talk to the Munchkins and help in the ways that we are trained and skilled to do, or just naturally talented to do. It's totally fine. Let them reach out to the people around them. Everyone who's working at home right now is tending to have a rough time, especially if they're extroverted. Hearing from the Munchkins can really brighten their day. I know that even as an introvert, my day is always super brightened when my godchildren and my nieces and nephews reach out to me. And a lot of times their parents will say things like, "I am so sorry, she's going to call you like 17 times a day." And I'm always like, why are you apologizing? This is dope. I love hearing from the kids. I don't get to have kids in my life normally because I don't have biological children of my own, but I love hearing from them, and hearing from the kids can totally brighten up my entire day. I can take a 15-minute break from working at home to talk to the Munchkins, or I can even take an hour-long break and explain to them over my lunch break how to make a sandwich, or how to clean up a mess, how to do certain types of math or social studies or science or reading. They can sit there and just read to me as well, and we can practice reading comprehension together. It's a lot of fun. And remember, parents, it takes a village. A lot of times you have physical contact with that village, but keep in mind that the era of social distancing does not necessitate emotional distancing or social distancing, even though we're calling it social distancing. It merely means physical distancing. The advent of the internet and telecom in general allows us to reach out to other people at any point in our days or nights. So if you need support individually, reach out, and we're glad to talk to you. Reach out and have your kids reach out, and we're glad to talk to them. You have a support system already built in. Your best friends and your family members are here and ready to help you out. It is okay to reach out to people and say, "Hey, I could really use some help right now. I'm going crazy," or "the kids are going crazy," or "could you talk to them a little bit? I have a 30-minute meeting that I have to go to, and I'm a little concerned that they're not going to be as quiet as I need them to be, because that's totally normal for their age range, and I could use a little help even if you can't physically be there." This is really a great opportunity for aunts and uncles and godparents who are globally distributed to really help out with the family and to really make those social connections even stronger. So go ahead, if you are an aunt or an uncle or a non-binary relative or a godparent, to reach out to your family members who have kids and say, "Hey, how can I help you? Would you like for me to talk to the kids for 30 minutes or an hour each day? Do you have any meetings and stuff going on?" at a certain time of day that it would be really helpful for me to hang out with the kids online, whatever you can do, go ahead and offer, because also a lot of times people have trouble asking for help. So let's be proactive in asking for help and also in offering help right now. We're going to go on another break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how kids really pick up on how parents are reacting to things and how we can use that in our favor. Stay tuned.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were discussing the importance of being proactive and offering help and also in asking for help. Now we're going to talk a little bit about how children pick up on parents' anxiety and anger and why we really need to be mindful of how we act right now. Really how we act all the time, but in particular in times of high stress. Remember that at any time we are modeling behavior of what is normal and what is a good reaction to our children at any point. And it's especially important during times of crisis. So right now, if you're having a rough time, really do go ahead and reach out to the people in your family and your best friends who are able to spend some time with your kids, keeping them entertained via FaceTime and such, and you do what you can to help ameliorate those issues. Kids really easily pick up on your anxiety and your anger, and it can affect their emotional and their cognitive development. Research has also shown that fathers' mental health can have a bigger effect on kids than their mother's mental health. So when you're having a tough day or you're just not in a great mood, it's really important to be mindful about how you're coming across to the kids, even if you're not that worried about how you're coming across to everyone else. It is really important when you're stressed out or dealing with emotional issues like anger, anxiety, or depression to be extra careful about what you say and how you say it and how you act at home so it doesn't affect the kids. It's not just about hurting their feelings, but kids really tend to pick up on your mood more easily than you might think. And when kids see that you are in a negative mindset, like you're stressed or you're irritated or you're tired or upset, then it can cause them to experience that negative energy too. So if that happens frequently enough, then it can also affect their emotional and cognitive development. And if it's happening enough, then over time, parents could find that their kids have a lot of trouble relating to them or don't want to spend time with them anymore. Kids may stop sharing their problems with you or find it hard to express themselves, including verbally, at home. Many psychological studies have also found that children, especially younger ones, view their parents as role models, and they tend to imitate their behavior. So when parents express these negative emotions, particularly easily and very broadly, then kids may internalize that behavior, sometimes without even realizing it. And they may experience it as background anger, but depending on the kid's age and developmental level, they may internalize the experience very differently. A lot of toddlers and small kids may react by showing anger or distress themselves, and older kids may even withdraw emotionally, such as at school, or be less likely to react when confronted with negative emotions within or outside of the home. So that state of experiencing anger and aggression at home, if it's prolonged, then the kid's self-esteem may even be affected, and that can lead to self-blame, feelings of shame or helplessness, and or humiliation. Kids really do pick up on these moods a lot easier than you would think, and young children in particular are more susceptible to picking up on them. Kids under 3 are definitely still learning about emotional regulation. So if you're modeling that for them by exhibiting emotional instability, then they may pick up on that and react in a similar way. They may increase how frequently they cry. Their crying may become uncontrollable. They may throw temper tantrums or just exhibit excessive fear or anxiety. They could also act even more clingy towards their parents, or develop phobias, or have problems eating and sleeping. It can go in about 75 different directions at that point. And in extreme situations where one or both parents can be emotionally unstable or unpredictable or have frequent mood swings, then kids can become psychologically traumatized and emotionally unstable. Kids in those situations are at a higher risk of developing depression, anxiety disorders, and other types of irregularities in their personalities. So, some studies from Michigan State University have shown that the mental health of fathers has a stronger impact on kids than that of the mothers. The study looked at 730 separate families across the U.S. and found that fathers' parenting-related stress had a more detrimental effect on the kids' cognitive and language development when the children were 2 to 3 years old, even when the mother's influences were accounted for. They also discovered that the mental health of fathers and mothers had a similarly significant effect on behavioral problems amongst toddlers, and that depressive symptoms in fathers when kids were toddlers were more influential on kids' later social skills than similar symptoms in mothers. So those findings were published in 2 academic journals, the Early Childhood Research Quarterly and Infant and Child Development. So negative emotions are going to exist in your home periodically. There's no getting around that, and you don't necessarily need to hide from kids that as adults you also experience a spectrum of emotions. But it's the way that you exhibit them and that you model them, process them, and overall handle them that is important for the kids. They need to know how to deal with them. It's normal for everyone to be in a bad mood periodically and to be upset with your kid periodically, but that should also be making sure that your bad moods and anger outbursts aren't frequent, unpredictable, or violent. So if you get upset periodically, you shouldn't feel guilty about that, but you should be mindful of ways that you can reduce the level of your reaction, the severity of it, and really how frequently it's happening. So just like kids, parents also make mistakes, and it's important to learn from them and try to do better next time. Moms and dads who are prone to feeling more stressed just need to work a little bit more on how to manage those emotions to live a well-balanced lifestyle and make sure you're getting enough rest and exercise. Call on your friends and your family members. We're here to help. Being self-aware is also very important. I think a lot of people underestimate the impact that you have on children's emotional, cognitive, and social development with these small outbursts, because for you, they're emotional outbursts that happen in the moment. But for kids, everything is very new, and they internalize a lot. They are not necessarily going to get it the way that adults do, though. You can't just go, oh, my kid will understand and brush it off, or say, they're just kids, they won't get it. They are very perceptive, and we want to make sure that if we're in the wrong, that we apologize to them. Kids very much can understand that concept, and it's not going to mean much if we make them apologize to their playmates and to their siblings and such if we are not also modeling that for them. So we have to take responsibility for our behavior as parents and caregivers, and also make sure that we're able to discuss these things with the kids, that we understand the reasons for why we're upset, and that we only exhibit it as appropriate and infrequently, and make sure that if we are feeling easily triggered towards anger, that we're able to address those things that are making us upset so that we can prevent that in the future. We do have control over our mood and behaviors. Life is 90% how you react to it. It's only really 10% what actually happens. We can change our behavior in order to make a happier life for ourselves and for our kids. So make sure that if you are prone to having really angry facial expressions, that you work on that too. And if your kids are telling you that they're freaked out or they're asking you if you're okay, then to be mindful of that. Thank them for noticing. Let them know that you're okay and that you're upset, but you're processing it. And that's okay. That's a healthy way to process that. And that's all we're trying to do here is model healthy behavior for them so that not only we don't lay our shadows on them, like we discussed in the episode about the shadow and the ego, but also that we are modeling good self-care and mental health and self-awareness for the kids as well. We're going to go on another break, and when we come back, we're also going to talk about a parent's right to emotional wellness. Stay tuned.
GSMC Beauty Tips Podcast gives you advice on everything from hair to fashion to skincare products. We'll talk about the latest trends in makeup, hairstyles, and anti-aging remedies. And we'll cover all of the newest fashion trends. If you have an interest in or questions about the beauty trends that might work best for you, the Golden State Media Concepts Beauty Tips Podcast has got you covered. Download the GSMC Beauty Tips Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. And before the break, we were discussing how parents and their attitudes can really rub off on kids and affect their cognitive and emotional development. Now we're going to talk a little bit about how, as parents, you still have a right to emotional wellness for yourselves. So most of this episode, we have focused on the kids, but it can also be very taxing on the parents. It is okay to need some time for yourself. And again, I will say it, reach out to your family and friends, even in the era of social distancing, to spend some time with your kids. Everyone needs a break at a certain point. Being a parent is another full-time job that you can't call in sick for, really. So if you need help, ask your friends to FaceTime with your kids and stuff. See if somebody can hang out with them or play games with them online. We have so many different avenues of social interaction at our fingertips that don't require in-person contact. Take advantage of that right now. So sometimes when something changes in your life with your kids, it can be really stressful. And that may take the form of a new baby and how much you are not getting to sleep anymore while you still have toddlers in the house. It's also okay if you are feeling overwhelmed in a period of transition like what we are experiencing now, in which we're having to work from home. That's already one big transition if you're not already having to work from home. And some people think that it's a really great thing to get to work from home, and other people are just not able to handle it very well. They don't like it. They like to have a separate workspace from their home space, and I totally get that. And that's okay. We're all very different, and we all handle this very differently. But that's one transition. And then you also have the kids at home all the time. And not only are they just home, it's not even just like it's spring break or winter or summer break, but you are also now having to try to perhaps teach them, and you may be feeling incredibly overwhelmed. That's okay. It is okay to not be okay and to feel overwhelmed. We really live in a task-oriented culture right now, and we are trying to achieve being the best at everything. We are trying to be the best parents and the best workers and the best friends for everyone, the best daughters and fathers and so on. And it can be very, very harmful when it comes to feeling balanced, this focus on productivity. So it's important to cultivate our spiritual and emotional and mental wellness during this time too. In order for us to be able to pour out of our cups to other people, we have to make sure that our cups are full as well. So, to that end, we want to really nurture our emotional inner world, because when we're feeling more balanced then, and in that context, then we can also connect better with each other. It can help us bring harmony to our families and our communities and our world. So, with these new times, it's good to go ahead and just sit with your kids a little bit. Pay attention to the quiet. Just experience mindfulness with them. You can even just hold them in your arms while they're taking a nap and enjoy the quiet and enjoy them being little, because they do grow up so quickly. So just take a moment to be mindful and enjoy the little things. Sit there and hum a song to them or sing them a song if that's your jam. Go ahead and have some just free space where you don't have any plans, just free time and enjoying the time with the kids. You can also go ahead and put them on the iPad with their auntie and go and take a bath for 30 minutes to an hour. Put that sock on the door knob like we discussed earlier and just let them know, hey, this is mom's emotional time. Just like I respected your alone time earlier, this is my time. Go to the bathroom before I go in there, and then I'm going to be in there while you talk to your auntie on the phone. So when you have these times with yourself, it can really help out a lot. You might even just want to sit there and read a little bit in a rocking chair. And that is okay. Whatever it is that makes you feel more centered, you should take that time for you. That can be very, very important. Even if you are just snuggling with your partner for 20 minutes while the kids are on the phone in the other room, or while they are watching Masha and the Bear or something. That's one of my nieces and nephews' absolute favorites. So park them in front of the TV for a minute. It's okay. We are in untried times. We don't necessarily want them in front of the TV all the time, but sometimes, mom and dad, you really just need a break, and that is okay. That's totally fine. Sit them there, and you will be back in 20 minutes. Everything will be fine. Make sure that you keep whatever they're doing, of course, age appropriate. And if you have to leave the door open because they're too little, I get that too. But do whatever you can to maintain that for you. When they are in bed, perhaps have yourself a bowl of ice cream where you don't have someone clamoring in your lap the entire time. Unlike trying to take a bath, a bowl of ice cream only takes like 10 minutes to eat probably. So that's okay. And that's something you can do for you and have less of the chance of them running in there and interrupting you. It is very important to take that time for you. You deserve to be happy, and your baby, your children deserve to have a happy parent. They also, as your partners, deserve to have a happy partner, and that's really important. So taking care of you is, in a way, taking care of them. So take that time for yourself. Notice something that makes you happy. If you're having a really rough time, just take a minute to ground yourself and list a few things that you can sense with each of your senses. It sounds silly perhaps, but it can be very grounding, and you can do it more than once to help calm you down and ground you in the moment. So getting emotional support from your partner or your family or friends can be really important at that time. Go in the other room and call your best friend, or take a bath and call your best friend. Just get some time alone, even if it's just for a few minutes. Go ahead and have fun in whatever way you can fit into your life. Go in your room, play Clash of Clans for 20 minutes. Do something like listening to music or playing music. Sometimes you can combine those things with activities with your kids, where you can play music for them while they dance. Go ahead and cycle in your room if you have an exercise bike. Walk in nature with the kids, or by yourself if you're able to get someone to just watch them for a little bit, or if they're old enough to be left on their own while you just go outside for 15 minutes and read a book or something. Getting a little bit of an activity that could be creative or personally meaningful for you as well can be really helpful, like doing a craft or gardening or just doing some yoga for a little bit. Now, I know that you are up to your neck in diapers and video conferencing and peanut butter sandwiches and everything else that you are having to deal with right now. But remember, it takes a village to raise kids. It's okay to reach out to other people. It's okay to take a little time for you. That does not make you a bad parent. It makes you a mindful parent who is keeping in mind that in order to be fully present for those around you, you have to be fully present for yourself as well. And that is something that is great to think about and consider all the time, but particularly as we go into further social distancing. I know some folks are already having a bit of a hard time with it, and we're looking at maybe having to do it for a while longer. So start implementing these practices of self-care right now, because it will help you to reflect it outwardly to your children and further enhance their emotional and cognitive development, as well as to model that behavior for them too. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show, and writing a nice review always really helps us. Also, if you could please remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I'd appreciate it. Thank you kindly, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Health and Wellness Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.